when they read or heard of the reports of the CBN, or rather the position of the office of the governor of CBN, that the powers of that office, which the minister was advocating, that some of those powers be whittled down. I think if you go back into the origins or the history, one of the challenges we faced as a nation was the lack of symmetry between our fiscal and our monetary policies. The CBN is in charge of monetary policies by law. The federal government, through the Ministry of Finance, drives fiscal policy. Now, it is important that there is some synergy, there is some level of congruence, right? There is some harmony between those two sides. Now, I recognize the frustrations of the minister. The minister has complained several times that, for example, the CBN keeping the monetary policy rate at 14% is not helpful to business. The cost of accessing credit has shot through the roof because the CBN has kept that rate there. The CBN, on the other hand, says, well, I left it at 14% simply because I am targeting inflation. I want to bring down inflation because inflation is running out of control. Now, my sense is the CBN must be independent. That is the global standard. And I don't think Nigeria should reverse the gains that we have made. Many decades ago, the CBN used to be under the direct control of the Ministry of Finance. In my view, that was not healthy for Nigeria. I like an independent CBN, but I also like a CBN that is open and approachable and flexible and is willing to sit with their fiscal policy counterparts, lock themselves in the room. Yes.
Even if hard choices have to be made, as you did say, that we have to take some hard choices to be able to propel the economic growth. If that is required, what would you advise?
Well, my sense is this: hard choices definitely need to be made. There are critical drivers of every economy, so the interest rate regime is one of it. The government of Nigeria has and continues to borrow aggressively, a lot from the domestic market, increasingly now from the international markets. Once you are borrowing aggressively from your local markets, and the cost of borrowing is that high, because the government is borrowing in the short end anywhere from 16 to 18%. Now, that is significant. If the government, the sovereign, is borrowing at 18%, then you know that the other economic actors are borrowing at 25 to 30%. So that is injurious to businesses, particularly the SMEs that form the largest block of entrepreneurs in Nigeria. So that is one challenge. But on the other hand, I also get and understand where the ministry is trying to come from to say, look, we need to strike a balance. How do we find some middle ground where you continue to target your price stability objective as CBN, but also do not stifle local private sectors' access to finance? Because what has happened today is the private sector has been totally crowded out. One of the CEOs of one of the leading banks in Nigeria said recently that they were going to focus on investing this year in government securities because it is risk-free, it is delivering a decent return to them. So why lend to riskier players in the economy? Now, that is the kind of distortion that is created when government is the biggest borrower and is ready to pay a premium to borrow money in an economy. So it's not a friendly place or a comfortable place for us to be. But I recognize what motivated that. The CBN wanted to track inflation, but I believe they made a slight mistake in there, because the driver of inflation was not so much that there was too much money in circulation. It was as a result of what happened to oil prices and the fact that the Nigerian currency was devalued and the cost of imports went through the roof.
But we had issues even before the prices went haywire.
Yes, well, because essentially, our governments have run deficit budgets for the last couple of years. It is not peculiar to Nigeria, but at the same time, there has to be a balance between the local borrowing and the international borrowing. And even if you are borrowing locally, must it be at that price? My sense is between the fiscal policy authorities and the monetary policy authorities, the minister and the CBN governor, they need to sit down, put their respective teams together in a room and come to some middle ground that will be in the overall interest of Nigeria and Nigerians.
If they were to do that, do you see it having any impact whatsoever on the interest rate?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You know, right now, inflation in the last couple of months has shown sign of trending downwards. First of all, the rate of increase was reducing, and in the last inflation number that was released, we actually saw a slight reduction. Now, so the CBN will feel justified that our tight monetary policy regime is the reason why inflation is trending downwards. I beg to disagree. I think it is largely driven by the devaluation of the naira. So even inside the government's plan, there was a statement in there that Nigeria as a country will move towards a flexible foreign exchange regime, right? My sense is we still have not answered that question. Right now, our currency has been appreciating over the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, right? But the reasons for the appreciation is really because one significant player, the CBN, is supplying meeting all the demands.
Well, let's take a look at that and a lot more in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, still focusing on the ease of doing business. Okay, let's go over to Abuja. Markboy's got a question. Markboy.
Well, we just heard the Controller General of Customs there talking about the immigration aspect of the ease of doing business. In your opinion, what do you think entrepreneurs are looking for in terms of trying to make things easy for them? What would you say is the most single important component of that they would really love for it to be easier on them?
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, I think there are a few things that entrepreneurs are looking out for. The very first one we've talked about earlier, which has to do with infrastructure, the basic infrastructure, power. For most businesses, power constitutes easily 40%, if not more, of their cost of doing business. Access to finance is another critical element. So we need to have a situation where